We are here to talk about your ELA 11 emergency remote packet. I have filmed this video numerous times, and each time I find myself talking all over the place about various things and rambling far too much, as I am right now. I'll go ahead and address that these videos are going to have background noise. All of them for the foreseeable future are going to have background noise, probably weird editing jump cuts that I kind of can't help. These videos are not going to be perfect, but they are going to be my best effort to get this information out to you, to get a visual representation of an explanation relatively close to what we would have in class if we could meet in person right now. I definitely want to give you guys a video before your packet is due. That way, even though we're covering day 1 close to day 5, at least you can go back in your packet and look to check your work, maybe see if you have a better understanding now of what you're doing, or maybe a little bit more confidence in what you're doing. With that being said, we're going to look at the very front page first. This information right here, these are your ELA standards. Your ELA standards act as a guide to your teachers as to whether or not they are keeping you on track. For example, from working on a level of ELA 10 to working on a level of ELA 12. So ELA 11 is just a track from 10 to 12. Is essentially what it is, and it's an indicator to your teachers as to how to get you on an ELA 12 track or on an ELA 12 level of achievement and understanding. They're also indicators to administrators as to what your teachers are covering in class, when they are covering it, are they actually progressing through the standards, are they actually covering relevant content. They can also be indicators to you and your parents as to the relevancy of your work, how relevant your work is, what it means, what we're trying to achieve here with your work, why we've selected the work that we have, and so on and so forth. And you can look further into your standards by simply Googling the West Virginia Learning Tree, the West Virginia Department of Education standards, West Virginia ELA 11 standards. It's a very quick, very easy Google search, and you can find out all kinds of information as to how your standards line up with your previous grade, ELA 10, and what you're about to be exposed to as far as ELA 12. Okay? Next, with this packet right here, we've got an issue with information winding up blank. Because this information winds up blank, you have a companion message each day. So I haven't just sent out one packet of your work. This is not all 15 days of your packet. This is just day 1 alone. So you've got day 1 off to itself, and these 5 pages collectively are day 1. So you've got your day 1 packet, and then you've got your day 1 companion message that fully cover the content you're going to be asked about. So you've got that message in your inbox, and then you've also got a message that looks like this. And this is my advice to you as a student in general, as an 11th grader in general, and especially as a student who is experiencing this unprecedented remote learning situation that we're in right now. My first bit of advice is that you just have to try your best. You have to attempt your work. It doesn't matter what class you're in, what the topic is, you have to attempt your work. Oftentimes, you don't even know from your teacher's perspective what the objective is. Your objective could very likely even be that your teacher knows you're going to fail, and it's not that they want to see you fail or they want to give you a bad grade. It's that the point of the lesson is you making mistakes and learning from those mistakes, because sometimes making mistakes is the only way we can figure something out. Sometimes you just have to learn by doing, and there's a first time for everything. Oftentimes, the first time we attempt to read something like this, we're not going to do so well very quickly. But it just takes practice of attempting to do so time and time again to reach a successful product more quickly, more efficiently, and with a better understanding of how to do so and how that works and why that works. But anyway, so that was my first bit of advice. Try your very best, attempt all of your work. You don't even know how your teacher's going to grade the assignment you're given or what they're going to do with it once you've completed it the first time. So perhaps your teacher could give you a really difficult assignment, and your assignment is to work on it and do the very best you can, and your very best may not be all that good, but then you can work from that point and do better from there and try time and time again. That's what you're in class for. You're not in class to show up and be perfect and know everything already. You're in class to work and get better from wherever you are. So wherever you are now, you have to try your best. And I kind of gave you the okay and the advice of looking up works you don't understand. So if you see in one of your assignments that you have to read wholly Sonnet 10 and you don't understand it and you're stuck at home without any of your teachers and without very much help, then perhaps you need to on your own advocate for you and your success and look for resources that help you. Even if we were in a normal learning situation, you are still going to run into topics you do not understand, teachers that you struggle to understand in general, and then there's going to be situations when your teacher is explaining information that cannot be explained in a simpler way. The way that your teacher is explaining something cannot be broken down any further into smaller elements. And that's going to happen more and more as you get older and go through your academic career. So in those situations, that's not the end-all be-all of your education. That does not mean you're stupid or incapable of learning. It just means that you're in a situation that doesn't make sense to you right then. So what you do is you advocate for yourself and you find resources for you that help you. But you, at the end of the day, you want to advocate for you and your success as a student. And you can just kind of forget about everybody else. Forget your teacher, forget your classmate, forget your friends. At the end of the day, you have to worry about your understanding of your content. And so if I were a student that did not understand Sonnet 10, I would definitely advocate for my success as a student and look online for resources that could help me. And you can find help with poetry and famous literature through SparkNotes, CliffNotes, ENotes. The list goes on and on. Looking into these resources, we like to look at them and think of them as, well, we're getting a cheat sheet to guide us through our understanding or guide us through our homework. And that's kind of the way that they advertise it too, because there's a quick advertising edge there. However, it's a marketing ploy. It's not just a quote-unquote cheat sheet. What it actually is it's just a well-structured, colorful, quick study guide to you. So even if you look into these resources and you believe that you're cheating, there's still that magical element right there that you're looking into a study guide. You are a student studying this literary work and works just like it. Many students and even many teachers will denounce and belittle the use of SparkNotes and Shmoop and ENotes as kind of the easy way out for your homework, or something that is beneath them as a scholar or as a really smart student or as a professor. In all honesty, there is nothing outside of this study guide or a combination of a few study guides that I would say or could say to students in a normal classroom as a high school teacher or even as a professor. Everything I would say is right here, and there is nothing extra that I could say that goes beyond this study guide that would benefit you as a student or put you well on your way to being a better English scholar. And that's just the truth of the matter. So we don't have to look at this as something that's for people who want to quote unquote cheat, or people who can't read, or people who want to quote unquote cheat or find the easy way out. At the end of the day, that's just not what this is. What this is just a compilation of historical context, literary connections, connections among who wrote what when, who influenced what when, which writers knew who they were friends with, who they were influenced by, who they were taught by. And then you've also got basic summaries, and you've got an explanation of poetic form, and then analysis or commentary. The summary is important for you to clarify your understanding of your reading. So this is kind of just a straight up explicit explanation of what's happening on the surface. And then you've got an explanation of form, of poetic form. We're not so much worried about poetic form right now. But then you've also got an explanation of analysis. And if you have never analyzed literature, or you've never seen anyone analyze literature, you're not going to know how to do that yourself. If you've never seen or read somebody analyze literature, you're not going to know how to write about analyzing literature if you've never seen it written about. So as an 11th grade student, I would not look at this as a crutch or as all of the answers, because it's not. You're still reading about the work in depth. You're still studying the work in depth. You're still reading an analysis of a work. You're still reading and participating in that discussion. So it's not exactly the quickest cheat sheet you could come across. As an 11th grade student, I would not look at this as a crutch or as a quick cheat sheet, especially considering you would need to be reading quite a bit of analysis and quite a bit of discussion of a work before even getting to any real answers about the work. I would see this, if I were an 11th grade student, I would see this as a means of being exposed to and understanding examples of literary analysis already done. This literary analysis is not all that special. This is common interpretation that has formed over decades and decades and decades of people working with it and reading it and discussing it. So this is not what you would write yourself. This is kind of a foundation you would stand on. You would have to come up with something original. It would, of course, never be okay for anyone to steal this and pass it off as their own writing or their own information or their own original interpretation. This is by far not that at all. But you can look into SparkNotes for all of that information. You can click through a summary of the work itself. You can find context, and that's like the historical time period, events that would be going on, possible events that the author could be referring to or influenced by, or people they could be influenced by. You can look at main ideas, themes, symbols, motifs. These will become increasingly important as your year goes on, as your education goes on. Further study, they can give you study questions to help check your understanding. And then writing help, they can give you suggested essay topics, at least examples of them, and then how to cite the SparkNote, because you would never want to pass off one of these entries as your own. And another thing about SparkNotes trying to advertise itself, it tries to make itself legitimate in like a fun, modern way by bringing in movies that we watch today, actors that we know today, and kind of connecting them to older works to kind of bring like a more youthful element to all of these works that we're going to be kind of forced into reading that we may not choose to read on our own. They would have other things like, what character are you in such and such novel, that you would likely never read on your own. But that's SparkNotes, and this right here is Shmoop. Shmoop has changed its look in the last year. It used to be completely orange, but now it's all pink and vibrant, and they're kind of limiting you as to what you can see without a membership and things like that. But Shmoop is pretty good for the most part. And then we've got their entry about it. The way that Shmoop advertises itself is that they kind of try to take on like a humorous form of summary and analysis when it comes to this stuff, so that way you, the student, don't lose interest in all of the tedious notes that they have to make to keep their analysis complete. So I kind of actually like their summary here of Sonnet 10. Right off the bat, the speaker starts talking smack to Death, whom he treats as a person. That's kind of quickly indicated by keeping Death capitalized and the speaker addressing Death as if it were a person. He tells Death not to be so proud because he's really not as scary or powerful as most people think. The speaker starts talking in contradictions, so opposite, saying that people don't really die when they meet death, and neither will the speaker. Then the speaker, tries to burn Death's biscuit by comparing him to rest and sleep. And that's kind of the first answer to one of your questions right there. And we'll talk about how we know that as a reader and not just as someone reading some of these summaries, because we need to be able to rely on the text in front of us to complete an SAT question. We're just here to kind of get, for lack of a better phrase, to get our feet wet, to kind of just be exposed to this type of analysis and this type of perspective regarding literature. So next, to paraphrase Billy Joel, the speaker claims that only the good die young because the best people know that death brings pleasure, not pain. So people often look at, in poems like this, people often look at death as like a relief from the human condition and all of its problems. It's more likely that an author from this time period would be rather religious and have a firm belief in the afterlife. And so if they had a belief in the afterlife, then they likely believed that there was paradise on the other end of death. So death would not be that bad in that context, in that perspective. As if this isn't enough trash talk, the speaker kicks it up a notch, calling Death a slave and accusing him of hanging out with those low life's poison, war, and sickness. Besides, we don't need death. The speaker can just take drugs and it will have the same effect, falling asleep. So the speaker kind of compares death to just being asleep for a long time, or maybe not even for a long time. So death is just a short sleep, after which a good Christian will wake up and find himself in eternity. Once this happens, it will seem like death has died, which is kind of a bit of a paradox, because if there's no entity of death to kill death, then how can death die? And if death died, then what would the world be then? And then we've got ENotes. ENotes is kind of the same situation. It's very plain. It's not decorative. It's not advertising itself to be anything fancy or fun or colorful. It's just kind of straight up information. Some information is behind a subscription and a paywall, but a lot of it is just kind of just out there and up front for anybody that needs quick summary or to quickly study something like this. And then they've got annotated text. Let's see what that is. So annotated text would be you click on quotes and then they explain it in depth for you guys. Also, I mentioned that you could even look up videos. So let's say reading summaries is not helping you very much, or maybe you can't focus on reading, or maybe reading is not the best way that you learn. Maybe videos can help you. So all I've done here is I've gone to YouTube and I searched Holy Sonnet 10, and of course this is what comes up here. Right here would be a direct reading of it, so maybe you struggle with reading it, maybe hearing the poem itself would help you. Then we've got these discussions of the work, and to be honest, none of the discussions are of the highest quality most of the time with most of these works. But they're truly just people just trying to help out other people understand their homework, or some of them are just homework assignments themselves. So, for example, you would have someone reading it, someone discussing it. They've done kind of like an animation, so it's also very likely that this was just a project that they completed for a class, that they had to make a video discussing the Holy Sonnet 10 or whatever. And then we've got 6 Minute Scholar. I've actually used 6 Minute Scholar videos in class before to explain or exemplify literary analysis, because she does a very good job most of the time. Of course, her videos are not of the highest quality, but that's not the point. The point is that she's covering content that needs to be covered, and she's exemplifying for students how analyzing and summarizing and understanding these types of literary works works. So then, let's see if there's any other notes I had in this. You, of course, cannot use supplementary or explanatory resources during the SAT, so it's not something you should rely on. It's something that you should use to study, something to practice, something to study. Nonetheless, you still need exposure to such explanation and experience reading about text and not just the text themselves. Your entire college career is going to be about text, not just the text themselves. So as younger students, you would summarize work, you would describe characters, but now you're getting into the realm of not just the setting and description, but of why the setting, why the description, why are we looking at death described this way, what's the purpose. And then of course we've got mood and tone. You've got mood and tone in the beginning standards of your packet, and then you've got an explanation of look for the subject of each sentence. So the subject is a noun that does something, a noun that completes an action. So once you figure out what's completing an action, what is doing what action, then you can pretty much figure out anything you want about the text. And that's exactly what they've done for all these summaries and all of these studies that have been created about all of this work. Just a further note, archaic means old, and you need to know that archaic means old. And then just another iteration of trying your best. Getting your answers wrong will help you so much more than anything else. Getting your answers correct right off the bat, okay, cool, then you establish that you know something you probably already knew that you knew. But when you get something wrong, it really kind of sticks with you. It really kind of reminds you that you don't know everything about what you're doing and you need to practice. So getting answers wrong are so much more valuable to you than just blindly guessing. If you're just blindly guessing, you're not getting anything right or wrong. You're just making marks. You're just making random marks on paper that aren't valuable to anybody. We're going to figure out a way to make these assignments not just about, when it comes to grading, not just about you filled out a paper and turned it in on time, or that you've gotten every single thing correct. It's not going to be about that. It can't be about that. It would not be fair either way for it to be about that. It's about you trying, practicing, failing, making mistakes, and then learning from those mistakes. That's why you're in school. That's why you have class. If you already knew everything and you would get everything perfect, then there would be no purpose for you being in class. You would already be graduated with a doctorate by now if you knew everything. Sometimes your best will not get you very far, but that does not mean that you should not try, because when your best is not getting you very far, that's an indicator to you that you need to keep trying and keep failing, keep trying, keep failing, and work on the things that you need to work on, instead of repeating the same exercises and actions over and over again that you're already good at. It serves no purpose for you to just stay on the same level that you're already on. You need to kind of extend above that a little bit more. I'm going to post more videos and we'll get into exactly how we can address this work right here and answer the questions, how we know what we know about this passage.